So I'm really delighted to have George Day with us. He is a distinguished ISBM Research Fellow and the Jeffrey Bussey Professor Emeritus at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He founded the Mack Institute for Innovation Management at Wharton, where he's presently serving as faculty emeritus in residence. None of you guys ever retired, do you? No. No. He has consulted on innovation and growth strategies with over 40 global corporations and served on 12 boards of directors. He's going to talk to us about leadership in innovation, and I am just so delighted to hear from you, George, and so glad to have you with us. So here you go. All right.
So I like to wander, and I'll introduce it by shouting out, "Good morning!" What am I hearing? Okay, that's an actual audience research question, and different audiences respond very differently when I shout out "Good morning." My MBA students before about 11 are totally mute. Uh, uh, so that's the MBA students. Then the PhD students are extraordinarily insecure. If I see three of them coming towards me and I shout out "Good morning," they whisper to each other, "What did he really mean this morning?" So that's an indicator of their great insecurity. But I especially love the undergraduates. And I think they're an amazing bunch. But if you put 300 of them into an auditorium and you shout out "Good morning," they just write it down in their notebooks. They're so instrumental. It's unbelievable. So Lynn didn't leave mention an important part of my background, which is that I am an engineer, have worked in the chemical industry probably for several decades. And my first job in management was where I became part of the market development team for Union Carbide in plastics and chemicals. So primarily low and high density. So my first day on the job, my boss was fired. And this was a two-person group. So all of a sudden, I was propelled into as a really junior engineer. And that's when my fascination with the question that the two questions I'm posing about growth and the role of innovation. And laterally, I've been exploring the potential for generative AI. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So there's actually two questions there. Sorry, I've been alerted to not get too far forward because the camera doesn't catch. So there are two questions I want to take in sequence. And I often put a question mark behind a title, book title, title of a talk. And so I'm going to try to answer what are the three questions about organic growth. That is the kind of growth that is driven by the innovations that you all are responsible for. And also explore the other topic of what are the limitations of AI and what can it answer. So my plan is to answer the first part. What are the three questions that are driven out of the new book I have. It just came out a couple of months ago on Innovate to Grow. And then we'll spend the latter part on what, if anything, AI can contribute. So my style is interrogative, in your face, and so I can cold call any one of you. And I will. But it's important that you preempt me by asking questions. Okay. I'm looking at innovation as a driver of organic growth. It fits beautifully with the previous talk. And so I want to emphasize a couple of things that came out of a McKinsey analysis back now 6 years ago. But I don't think it's changed that much, and that organic growth that drives the stock price and certainly makes it an appealing company to join is at the top of the leadership agenda. Yet, and this is the big yet, 94% of these leaders, and I'm going to be focusing on the leadership team, are totally dissatisfied with their innovation performance. So I'm going to tackle each of these issues, and let's turn to the 3 questions that I have developed. The other thing that is important that I've been serving or have served or am now serving on 13 different boards of directors. These are the questions that your leadership team and the board are asking constantly. I've also derived them from a lot of programs on innovation and innovation management that I have organized and directed, including a long 15-year association with W.O. Gore and Associates, right around the corner. So this is a very familiar territory. The other source of these questions is that I, in addition to being a board member, use much of my consulting engagements are facilitating top management strategy meetings. And these are the 3 questions that perpetually come up as major issues for the organization. So here they are. How fast can we grow from within? That is organically through the innovation processes and dynamics that we've been talking about. Do we have the right organization? And I'll explain more fully how the organization is a function of the culture, the capabilities, and these are mostly dynamic capabilities, and how the organization is structured. So configuration is an alliterative and clunky word for organization. And relevant to and picking up on the previous talk, how can we capture growth opportunities sooner when the present devours all of our attention? And that's a play on the pressure that all leadership teams face in meeting the immediate performance objectives while looking over. So what we'll see is that growth leaders are much better equipped. Now, I must make clear that I'm distinguishing between the leadership team, which includes basically think of the C-suite, and organic growth leaders. And in my research, and this is informed by a thorough study of 190 different companies, global, looking much like all of your companies. And so I just found that 15% of these companies were actual consistent growth leaders organically. I was able to separate out growth from other means of renewal like acquisitions, mergers, and joint ventures. So this is purely focused on the kind of organic growth that is driven by innovation and consistently over the last 3 years, and the prospects are good that they will sustain these. So I'll use the last question as the jumping off point for an exploration of generative AI. Okay. Everything, are there any questions at this point? You have a question. Yeah. I warned you, I would cold call. Yeah.
So when you talk about the growth, who are you talking about? Not talking about the
So
the companies that
that's an important distinction. I'm looking at the world through the eyes of the C-suite, the leadership team, if you like. Because I firmly believe that the leadership team is effectively a team that advises, consults, and guides the CEO. So that's the organizational side of it. Organic growth leadership is the 15% of companies in all sectors that grow on average organically 3% more than the average. So just to complete the equation, I found that about 45% grew close to the sector or industry average. And then the disturbing part is that 36% of these firms that I studied were growing much less rapidly than even the industry average. So we'll call those growth laggards. And this is a tricky territory because if you consistently grow slower than your sector, you'll eventually become a target for takeover or failure. So there's a bit of a bias in the data. Probably understates the number of growth laggards. So is that clear?
Yes.
That's an important question. Okay. How fast should we grow? Yes.
Softball, but I can't guarantee it's a
Uh,
softball. So,
I'm only allowed to go this far.
question. So I know you're probably going to answer this, but when you talk about do leaders have the right organization for innovation? My parallel question to that is, do they have the right definition of innovation and how widely innovation can be applied within the
Yeah.
organization versus what I often perceive as a limited view of where innovation lies
Yeah.
versus a broader view of where we can be innovative?
Exactly.
Do you?
So
mean,
I
what's your
love it
perspective?
when someone asks a question and then answers it.
You agree?
I totally agree. So thank you. So
You said you wanted a softball. So.
yeah. Well, that was a delightful hardball, but I'm glad you answered it. You stepped up to the bat, and so let's look at each of these. So one of the things I think is so important about organic growth leaders, those 15% of or 18% that grow faster consistently than their sector or industry, have leadership teams that are deeply committed. They communicate that commitment. They're present in project reviews. They spend as much as 40% of their time thinking about innovation, supporting innovation, and enabling it. And they also spend a lot of their time thinking about the future. By the way, parenthetically, about 15% of the growth laggards, growth laggards leadership teams spend less than 15% of their time focusing on the future. They're all about capital appropriation reviews and trying to figure out whether they're going to make their budgets. And capital appropriation reviews are essential in their agenda. Yes, please. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get to that in a moment. Yes, please.
When you're looking at culture, capabilities, and configuration, in your experience, what is the hardest one to change within an organization? And when you've seen that happen, what were the things that worked?
Okay. So I'll answer it provisionally and then return to it in a minute. But briefly, culture is a consequence of changing capabilities and configuration, and then seeing and making sense. The culture makes sense of those successful changes. So that's, I'll come back to that, but that's pretty consistent with one of the Meyer scholars in culture, John Cotter. So that's his approach, and I believe it. But the second bullet is what I want you to take away from this talk. By far and away, the most significant discriminator between growth leaders, average growers, and growth laggards was the leadership commitment and their investments in recruiting, developing, and keeping the best innovation talent. By far and away, and it wasn't even close. And so most people say, well, that should be obvious. But a priori, most people in my circles don't get it. So investments in leadership, innovation, talent is both a function of getting the best talent so you can complete the innovation project. And they're the people that ask the good questions, David. So does that make sense, David? I've been cold calling you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of studies recently, even by my co-author, about do we prioritize innovation inside companies as leaders? And it's
Exactly.
a very small slice of the pie, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah.
As far as it's about hitting your next quarter's numbers,
Yeah.
not so much as being
Yeah.
investing in innovation for the longer term. So
Exactly. Another word for commitment is prioritization. Do they make it a number one priority? As it should be, if you want to drive organic growth faster than your average. So is this a cold call or a warm call?
I'll volunteer for a question.
Okay, that's preemption.
Yeah, so I think when people hear investments and innovation, they just read that part, they think about dollars a lot of times.
Yeah.
R&D. I assume that's not what you mean here, right?
Exactly not. So it's obviously a lot of dollars, but essentially it's about their time and how they allocate it and what they are. So let me back up. Obviously, having the best talent is important, but also having a signal that leadership really is dedicated to innovation and committed to it. And so it's if you like, a signal of the commitment of the leadership team. And in each organization, you won't see that. But I have had the good fortune to travel across a lot of different companies, and you see it. And it goes back to your question about culture. They are shaping the culture by prioritizing innovation and focusing on deep curiosity, empathy with their customers, competitors, collaborators. And so that's the main message I want you to take away. I spend a lot of time in Amazon, and I view them as a quintessential growth leader. They have 14 different leadership principles, and 2 of them are hire and develop the best, and leaders are right a lot of the time. So I've probably lived with about 20 different companies, mostly growth leaders, and I'll talk about Adobe Technologies in a moment. So that's the first question. And as a consequence, following up on your observation or softball question, or whichever, so they need to show commitment and communicate the ambitions for growth. So it's a matter of ambition. And so many companies, particularly among the growth laggards, are defensive and reactive. So they spend most of their time responding to the initiatives of the innovations of the growth leaders. So leadership must stay engaged in major projects. And that means participating actively with good information on during the project reviews. So back to your question about culture. So I see these three elements, which I've defined here, culture being what is important to us, values, norms, behaviors, those are expressed and manifested. Sorry, you're taking notes. I think my slides are going to be widely available, so don't spend your time. So by capabilities, I mean largely dynamic capabilities, which are sensing opportunities and looming threats, seizing them fast, and capturing the value. So we can dive into each of these areas, but in the time I have, these, most of the time when I get the question, do we have the, quote, right organization? It's about configuration. How are we structured? Dynamic teams, free-floating teams. How are resources allocated? And that's a big issue, largely because growth leaders, organic growth leaders, allocate a lot of resources to riskier, well, the kind of innovations that David was talking about, whereas growth laggards don't spend much, they're very defensive, and they do incremental innovation and responsive or reactive innovation. Platforms, metrics and accountability, basically how we keep score, and those are vast topics. But I want to stay at the high level of the three fundamental questions that underlie every leadership team's anxiety about innovation. Oops. So now I link closely and really reinforce what David was saying about capturing organic growth opportunities faster or sooner than the arrivals. So this is emerging out of a stream of research on that I've conducted, many others that have been supported by ISBM, and deep dives into companies like Amazon and others in the same sector. So one of the things that's characteristic about those that capture opportunities, the best opportunities faster, is that they first of all do what David advocated, which is stretch and reimagine your customer value proposition and your business model. So by stretching and rethinking each aspect, what markets we serve, what technologies we use, and then pushing them further, you come up with arguably 20 different organic growth paths. New markets, new products, new solutions, and a lot of it is business model innovation. But what I found, to my surprise, sorry, I have to, there's an invisible line here that circumscribing me. What I discovered by talking in detail, living with organic growth leaders, is that they used a lot of heuristics. That is, simple rules of thumb, which they communicate throughout the organization. And they use that to narrow their opportunity set very fast. So let's take a detour into Adobe and what they do. So Adobe's uses, their premise is the more pathways we can tackle with an innovation, the better. They also, one heuristic is less traveled pathways. That is, typically in the chemical industry or plastics, there's one or two growth pathways that everybody uses. And that's a sensible approach. But there's many other pathways, and let's take a deep dive into business model innovation, which is basically value creation and value capture. So there's many pathways within value capture that we can pursue. So another set of heuristics that I found that is simple rules that are widely communicated throughout the organization is be a first mover. Well, learn from precursors. And so I discovered this one when I looked at a number of Japanese beverage companies. And so they literally, whether they're in the spirits or the cola side, look at what their peers and precursors are in other markets, in other contexts, and learn from them. They also preempt possible threats. Share to gain is very much what David was talking about, partnering and productively partnering. So to see how this works, how many of you have used Photoshop? Okay, most of you. Remember the good old days when you bought a box of software and you owned it? So that was a great business model for Adobe. They made a lot of money out of it. And in about 2006-07, it started to fall apart, largely because of the trend to cloud storage. So cloud storage was a looming threat. I mean, an existential threat to their business, because it meant that people like Oracle, Microsoft could leverage, even Amazon, could leverage the power of the cloud to enter their business. So they decided to preempt those challenges, and they created a new cloud-based program, an approach to delivering the value of the Photoshop. By the way, this did not go down well with their customers. They hated it. They said, wait a minute, I own my data, my pictures, my edits. Wait a minute, I'm going to have to capture them in the web, in the cloud? Not so much. But Adobe understood their anxieties and concerns and negative reactions, but they were mostly concerned about the looming threat of competitors copying. But they also shifted dramatically their business model towards a subscription service. So instead of owning your software, you rented it with a subscription fee. And by the way, that opened up many, many new segments that couldn't afford the original Photoshop. They also improved their customer satisfaction by providing rapid upgrades. So in box software, you wait every 6 to 9 months, you stack up all the innovations and improvements in software, and then you release them. In the cloud, you can do it instantaneously and regularly. You don't have to wait. So that changed their value proposition. And I think one of the interesting lessons here is that there's an integrity to a strategy. That is, the value proposition has to be supported by the business model and vice versa. So let me stop there. Any questions? Okay.
I just had a comment. I don't know if you maybe understated, but it wasn't just the customers, it was also investors. We're not a big fan of Adobe taking this
yeah.
strategy.
Exactly, right.
And so it really took some perseverance from leadership to pull this off. So I've had the pleasure of working with Adobe on some of their new stuff too. And
good.
it was not puppy dogs, as Alexa would say.
Yeah.
It walks on the beach. It was a huge risk for them to shift to the cloud in this way. And Creative Cloud became the major revenue driver inside of Adobe, and they're a behemoth now because of it. But at the time, we can look back and say, oh, of course, that was a smart move. But at the time, they did not have a lot of fans of that choice.
No. So their customers were angry. Their existing customers felt their product, their creative product, would be compromised. The investors hated it. And David is exactly right. So their PE ratio dropped to about 9, which is pretty bad for the technology sector. Fast forward, the last time I looked earlier this year, I think their PE ratio is, by the way, rhetorical question, because I do know the answer. But what do you think the PE ratio of Microsoft is? Anybody guess? Probably 26, 27. Adobe's is now 85. 85 to 1. I mean, that's astonishing. That says the market appreciates the potential of this platform to continually grow. And so, David, thank you for reminding me about that. But So Adobe asks and answers those three questions. So let me now turn.
I have a question quick.
Another question.
Yeah.
I guess out of curiosity, so you said this happened in like 2006, 2007. How much did technology changes? So like laptops now don't have disk drives.
Yeah.
So like there's just the inherent, you have to adopt this because technology has kind of just forced us that way as well.
Fair question. In retrospect, there was no choice. But in prospect, back when David and I were working with them back in 2006, 2009, it was really unclear. Not only was there ambiguity and uncertainty about the evolution of the cloud, but the incredible resistance of the users was also troubling. And so right now, we see that the cloud has diffused and improved capabilities and security 100-fold over, say, 12 years ago.
George, we have a question that came in from
Yeah.
the folks online. How do we differentiate a growth leader from a technology or business leader?
So that's a great question. That falls into the softball category because it allows me to remind you that innovation is a means to an end. And that end is superior organic growth of the sort that Adobe has leveraged and creates. Back to my role as a board member, we focus heavily on the stock price, and not only on the stock price, but how it compares to our peer competitors. So I realize I love engaging. Sorry, I got to watch my limits. But I do want to turn to the second question. What role can AI or generative AI play in answering these questions? And obviously, by my title, I said, you shouldn't even answer them. So I view generative AI with great admiration. I have a degree in mathematical statistics. I've been doing AI or cluster analysis of related technologies for many years. But as I see generative AI, and it, by contrast with human cognition, that is humans being the leadership team, generative AI is backward looking. It seeks patterns in existing data, and it augments capabilities. So at best, and I'm sure this was a theme yesterday, it is a partner, co-creator, whereas on these three big questions, it's human cognition. It looks forward through the cloud of ambiguity and uncertainty and generates genuine novelty. That is, thinks differently rather than really looking for patterns in previous responses, and is far more empathetic. That is, it can put you yourself in the role of, and I think a good innovator is highly empathetic. They think like customers, they think like competitors, they think like collaborators. And so that was one of the messages that David emphasized. So that's the high level analysis of the role of AI in these 3 questions. So I asked, how many of you use Claude 3.7, the Anthropic? Yeah, that's my go-to. I started with ChatGPT, but I asked Claude to opine on the first question. And Claude 3.7 confirmed that, in fact, let me share what Claude said. Leadership team, quote, I'm quoting from Claude, leadership teams should use generative AI as a strategic thinking partner rather than decision maker, quote unquote. Uses include testing strategic plans against scenarios, synthesizing competitive intelligence, and challenging groupthink. So it's an interesting confession, if you like, or concession. One letter makes a big difference. But Claude says, we're supportive. Then I looked at all of the literature on AI applied to innovation, particularly internal innovation processes. And the net result was that it's a powerful adjunct to innovation processes, but it has multiple applications. These are just a few that I've summarized, but I spent a lot of time with Unilever, and they use, I'm sure you used a lot of, you had a lot of conversation about digital twins, and so that's powerful. So this is a summary of what you covered yesterday. So automated testing of prototypes, managing, in a complex portfolio where you have 300 projects, it's a pain in the neck to keep track of HR requirements, budgets, and track each project. That's where generative AI really pays off. So I'm mindful of my time. So any questions at this point? Does that make sense? Remember, I can cold call. Yes. Well, I cold calling you. Exactly. So they created a panel of literally 2,400 simulated consumers that behaved. They've validated this against test market data, and they use that. I think, David, what are you seeing in the area of using digital twins to test assumptions, evaluate concepts?
I see it as a a way to look at for blind spots or be an extra team member. What I'm proposing against, though, is using it instead of talking to real people. But things like how should we ask this question, or how should we frame things? It's very, very helpful that way, because it can see things that maybe you haven't considered. But where I get nervous is the companies I advise that say, we're not going to talk to customers. We asked AI and it told us, and now we're going to go build it. I feel like that's a bit risky.
Great, thank you. In the interest of time, I could keep going forever on this. So let me summarize. There is no room for complacency on either organic growth or technology. The reason that I say that is that there are very few firms that can exceed a modest growth ambition. So ambitions are important, but that, going back to your question, is part of the culture. Is it ambitious for relative growth? And I'm largely talking about relative growth, not total growth. I remind you that the defining attribute of a growth leader is how much they invest in innovation talent. The third reason that we need to pay attention to this is that it's all about capturing and evaluating and screening innovation opportunities that drive growth. And so fourth, my preference is to use not artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. And I'll leave you with the mantra, the Silicon Valley mantra about growth. Think big, start small. And celebrate your early successes and then scale carefully. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.